All right. So today we got Randy Huntington, the legendary track coach. He used to coach Mike Powell, I think, which he still holds the long jump record, and
hmm
also Willie Bank, like triple jumper. And recently he coached Wang Jianan and Su Bingtian. Right? Am I correct, Coach?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's it's a few more than that, but yeah, Wang Chenyu, Willie
So
Banks was
yeah,
world record holder.
nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, as well.
And
Um,
as I remember last year, is it last year or this year when you go back to like China? I think the only thing you did is change the sprinter's like block start, and all of a sudden he run faster, right?
well, no, it was with Chiu Hao or Rain, as his nickname is. It changed his block start. It just I just cleaned up his block start because he had the right settings, but I had to clean up what he was doing, his lean, his hip height, and whatnot. But then after that, it was really about uh, getting him to understand how long to accelerate. He was accelerating basically 10 meters. And I said, look, you got to carry this down the track 40, 45, 50 meters. And that got him to the 652 and if he had continued running, meaning more races, I think he could have dropped under 650.
Oh, drop under 650. That's awesome.
Well, 652 is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
652 is
that's
pretty
num
awesome.
that's number three all time in China. And you know, I mean, Coach Zhu had done an incredible job with him. And now Coach Zhu's retired, which I feel sad about that because he was a great guy and a great coach. So I'm heading to China to work with Rain just a little bit, try to get him jump started because he doesn't have a coach now. So
Oh, so how long
yeah,
are you planning to stay at China this time?
not very long, just 3 weeks this time.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool. Oh, also, I know you and Altus like launches the re-engineering.
reengineering Sue. Yeah,
Yeah, that was awesome. I enjoyed that so much.
did you? Yeah, I haven't seen it yet actually.
Really?
No, I haven't looked at it.
You should. It's
So
awesome, man.
yeah, people seem to like it. It's not new news. I mean, I think the hardest part for people is those of us that have been coaching a long time. We adapt to certain things, but most of our adaptation has been to technology, to be honest. We for the most part technically have been doing kind of the same thing for a long, long time. And
Yeah,
so this is, people are discovering this thing and that thing, and we're like, dude, 40 years ago, you know,
yeah.
35 years ago, or whatever it may be. Yeah,
So since we're talking about like technology, I know you like use Kaiser a lot and
I do.
use Kaiser 1080 a lot. So
hmm
like we kind of talked about like dynamic isometric strength the last time.
hmm
So maybe this time, can you kind of explain like the concept of elastic uh what is it called? Elastic ascent accelerated index, am I
You mean
using?
the EA index?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's you've already had Rolf on, I think, and he went through this pretty extensively. And there's there was just over the years we found a number of things, and this is really mostly Kenneth in Sweden, who I actually met for the first time last weekend. We sat down for a while, but we were looking for a way to measure elasticity and came up with an index. We're looking for some easy way for a coach to use metrics to do this. And that's where the EA index came up with me pushing the DIS and the fact that there's something going on there. How do we find it? And then Kenneth and Rolf um, basically applying a name to something that I've been talking about and doing for 35 years. Um, and so it gives us this time to peak velocity over peak velocity. And it allows you to now take a look at the velocity side of elasticity and elastic power. Most of us really get caught up in the strength side of power.
Yeah.
We forget about the velocity side. And and yet we in track and field we sort of live more on the velocity side, with the exception of some small spaces. Our people are very strong. I mean, you know, Sue is 185 kg parallel squat. That's a parallel squat. That's not a half squat. That's a right, thigh parallel across. Um, and that accounts for a part of why he was so physically capable of that kind of start that he had and that 30-meter and 60-meter ability that he had. It also tells you how much max strength has not much to do with the last 40 meters of 100 meters. You know,
Yeah.
not much. Yeah.
So, since we were talking about like technology, also like how strong Sue is, and like the Kai, and like I mentioned, you use the Kaiser squat a lot.
Mhm.
So, kind of like ask about your thoughts on like the force velocity profiling. I know a lot of people use like vertical force velocity profiling, like linear force velocity profiling using like 1080, all those stuff. So
Okay.
can you like share your thoughts on like force velocity profiling? Should we train the weakest point for an athlete's force velocity profiling or the strongest point? Or like
Well, at the answer that the quick answer to that is both. You always maintain the strengths and build the weaknesses. Um, I don't do force velocity profiling with the 1080. I don't think it works. We did a lot of work with it, and we did not find it to hold up consistently. Because to get to really look at the velocity side, it may work on the resisted side, but it definitely is not working on the assisted side, um, unless you know some parameters. So that you have to really monitor to be able to determine if you're what's happening to the athlete while they're being assisted. Um, on the resisted side, it's pretty easy. I mean, you just look at force and velocity, and you got power, and you can pretty much get a sense of what's happening all the way up. It's funny because we don't do much past 14 kg. We don't use gear two at all. And yet and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good for the athlete. It doesn't appear to do what you think it should do when you go real high. Um, and so we do sled instead for that. For the really heavy stuff, we use sled. And then because I'm using the 10, I'm interested in speed. I'm interested in power. I'm interested in limb movement. I don't want anything that's going to slow my limbs down too much. I want ground contact and movement fast down the track in that direction, you know, where we're going. So there's a couple of components that you look at. Well, you take a look at the power side, and I mean the force side, and you look at, whether we tend to use 30 and 40. Gosh, is it Newton meters? God, I can't even remember right now. I haven't seen a 1080 graph in a year and a bit, um, almost. But so at 40, you're pulling too fast and they're blocking. But at under 30, you're pulling too fast and they're not capable of getting their foot back to the ground. You're doing the same thing to them with two different problems. So, and both up, you have to slow it down and we don't do any overspeed at all. I've never done, I won't, I tried it, in the very beginning. It was scary as hell. And so the way we utilize the 1084 assisted speed is we do our flying 30 tests, and whatever that average velocity is for a 30 or flying 20, could be either one. We use that velocity as a starting point, and then we build, point 0.2, point 0.3, point 0.4 or so um, uh, meters per second to offset that pull, or we might go 6.2 or 6.3 or 6.4, a tenth of a kilogram extra pulling to change that velocity. But we don't pull any farther than they're capable of still producing force at speed. It doesn't work too well because if they can't do what they need to do with their hips, if they can't do what they need to do to create stride length and still produce force on the ground, it doesn't do them any good.
like even with Sue, the high level like
Oh no,
sprinter.
the highest we ever did was Sue was 11.3.
Oh.
Yeah, we never went over 11.3. And at 11.3, he's still struggling at 11.3, because he starts to break. And all of them start to break. Now, a couple other coaches had a different problem, which I sort of described, and that is they were getting numbers that were like 22 or 23 or 24 Newton meters, whatever it is, which means no longer were the people able to apply force. They were getting pulled over the top of their foot too fast, or they weren't getting their foot down fast enough. So now you have two potential technical problems that you have to solve to have a solution. So, um, other than that, the 1080 serves really, really good for acceleration and power leaks in stiffness and being able to video and look at what they're doing with the lower extremity. Where's their shin angles? Where's their GT with respect to their foot? Where's their center of mass with respect to the foot? I mean, you just look at all these things because that's what your acceleration has got to go that way, not this way. Yeah.
Yeah. So, since like we're talking about like sprinters, I know like in 100 meter you have a race plan, and in 60 you sort of have a race plan. But how about like football in 40-yard dash? Do you have a race plan in 40-yard dash? Is it
Yeah.
like all
When I was
excel? Yeah.
No, when I was coaching it, I had one for sure. Yeah. And a lot of guys are using the same one. I mean, everybody kind of arrives at the same place. You know that you got to get them to be great accelerators, preferably at least to 25 yards. And then you got to get them out of that and starting to feel like they're moving into max velocity. Um, and they can do it a little bit before that or after, but they've got to open stride length. And as soon as they open that stride length up, all of a sudden you're getting, you'll get linemen that'll go sub five almost immediately, and linebackers will be, sub 4.6, 4.5 for the really great ones. Running backs, are a little bit heavier and usually end up somewhere between 4.28 and 4.38, maybe 4.4. Um, but today you're just getting a whole lot of fast kids out there in football right now. I mean, it's amazing. But more and more people are working with better and better coaches in that situation. So they're getting better results.
Nice. So,
Well,
uh,
well, I mean, it's for coaches, it's a place to make money and a name for yourself, you know? I mean, I did that almost 35 years ago now. And, it was fun to do, but I was helping athletes' performance at the time. So my name wasn't on it, just, the results were. Um, and then had some other kids that were pretty darn good, did really well, considering where they come from. Kid went from 4.95 to 4.55, tight end, got a shot, got a cup of coffee, things like this. But my thing was mostly working with the older NFL guys, the veterans, who if they could add a 2 or 3 years to their contract, now they got big money. Now they're set for life, if they're smart. And that's where I spent most of my time was with the older athlete, not with the younger, but with the older.
would you consider like going back train like football players?
At 70, I'm kind of done with all of that. My thing now is to help coaches. Um, if somebody wanted to bring me in to help them understand how much better they could do if they could. I mean, today everybody's kind of doing the same stuff. It's when you go online and you look at YouTube, it's a whole lot of people mimicking things. And if they aren't, they're mimicking them and just calling them something different. They're making up new marketing words, you know. So, um, but it's the kind of thing that's fun. I mean, most football players are, first of all, are fairly motivated, so you don't have to, worry about that. Let me take a drink here.
Okay.
I got my water and my water. Okay. So, yeah, I don't have a strong desire to do it, but I'd certainly be willing to help anybody who needed it.
So, like nowadays, like football player. I think it's not just football, it's NFL, NBA, or like pro sport. Like we
Hmm.
got, like you mentioned,
I've
1080.
I've worked in all of them.
Yeah.
I
Oh.
mean, yeah, I worked in baseball, worked with the Mets, um, worked with the Expos, and then basketball, a couple of different guys over the years, and then football, a lot of guys, and then hockey, a few guys in hockey.
So for all like for pro sport, like we mentioned, there's like more and more technology, force plate, 1080,
Hmm.
Kaiser, whatsoever. But like still, like the injury rate is not going down. Instead, it's like going up. Achilles tendon rupture, ACL rupture. Why do you think that is?
Not sure. I mean, everybody's that much stronger and faster now, so I think the collisions are harder. Um, the guys are staying in the league longer at positions, which means that your Achilles issues grow with age, the potential for them grow with age, and there's not much you can do about that. Just the other issue with that is that in general, they're really good football players. The guys that are the 10 percenters, which means they're the 10% that work their butts off, they're probably on the edge of overtraining and maybe don't do enough recovery. But the really good guy, I'm sure have massage therapy, sauna, pool, they've got everything. But um, those areas, and particularly the Achilles, I mean, it can only take so much. And you've got to give it a chance to recover. So, I mean, for a football player, I used to tell the guys, "Hey, take 6 weeks off." They're like, "You're nuts." I'm like, "Well, look, it's a long season, man. It starts in April, and you got a little kid. Now you got camps. Back then, you still went in for the whole thing, but now you got camps, and I think that may be another part of this, and that is they come into camp, kind of get after it, and they go back out and they lose control of them. And where's the quality control? And I imagine what you're going to see is you're going to see teams start to pull people back in. And it was a mistake, in my view, it was a mistake for the NFLPA to do this and create this situation. But I understand why, because they would come into camp and they weren't ready and they were getting beat up, so they were getting injured in camp. And you know, I'm hoping and thinking that a lot of these football coaches have grown up now. I mean, what I mean by that is they've matured in their view of fitness, exercise, and training and recovery. So, um, I do believe that not letting the team strength coaches and the trainers and all that support mechanism, not letting it be there for them, it is a problem. And they may have to reinitiate, contractually again, pay people to come back into camp, come back in and go. Now, some people are going to have really good people. I mean, I fully understand why guys want to be close to their families and then, they live in a different town, a different state, some in a different country. But it's important that there's some consistency in the quality control with respect to those football players, football particularly. Yeah.
Cool. Do you think, because like a few weeks ago, me and my friend we were talking about like there are coaches talking about like the injury mechanics, like Achilles tendon injury mechanics usually should be like deep dorsiflexion, eversion and inversion, and the ACL sometimes would happen with Q angle or like anterior tibial shear, but like the other side of the conversation is like athletes do these movements all the time. They don't get injured like most of the time. They just get injured at that time point. So do you think like mechanics like these like people say it's like injury mechanics is like important or like we overemphasize that?
Well, certainly with ACL and Achilles, I mean, if your body basically lines up between 2 points, your head and your feet. Take your pick. and it's going to do whatever it can to stay underneath your head and above your feet. You know, um, and if you're pronating or inversion, eversion, whichever pronation, supination, whichever word you wish to use, um, then you're going to get tibial rotation. And if you get tibial rotation, then you have stress on the knee. And then if you work with a Q angle with on a female, now you've got stress on the knee with a Q angle that's already setting you up for problems. Um, and of course, we all have known that been in this for a while that it takes women longer than men in general, depending upon the Q angle, to recover from an ACL. Um, I think well probably the most popular. I guess McCaffrey's probably the best known Achilles right now, but I don't know how many other Achilles there are in the NFL. There could be a lot. I don't know, but it is a problem. I believe that we sometimes people get involved in doing too much of one thing. And, when I ever look at something, I'm looking at balance all the time. So even if I look at the posterior tibia, I mean, I'm looking at obviously the gastrocs and the soleus, and you need to have that soleus strong in order for those gastrocs to do their job. Um, and I don't think people still get their soleus strong enough. Um, when you're in a bent knee situation, acceleration, i.e. acceleration, or taking a blow in a lineman, or delivering a blow in a tackle, you're already compromised because your gastroc's gone. It's not supporting the knee anymore. So anytime you want to feel that, just kind of leg extension machine and bring it up with your ankles dorsiflex, then release your ankles and figure out what it feels like. And you realize how quickly you lose that support of the gastrocs in the knee.
So, like, I know in like the re-engineering, so you kind of mentioned about like soleus, but how strong is strong enough for the soleus?
Good question. I mean, Sue would work with, he weighed 70 kilos, 72, right in there, and he'd work with 210, 220 kilos. Um, he was pushing. I think that he's ended up right around 3,000 watts at um, at that weight and height. Now that's a little guy. Big guys can probably do more, but then it's relative to their body weight. So when I say that, if you're just running along, your soleus is probably hitting about 8 times body weight in what it's doing, and then the gastroc is 3 to 5. That just tells you that if you're running and sprinting and starting and stopping and turning, that soleus is working its butt off, and you better be very strong, very powerful. It's a timing thing. It meaning not timing, but time thing. You got to be able to do this quick enough off the ground so that you actually don't get compromised. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So I know you use Kaiser, but like besides Kaiser, is there like other way to like train our like soleus to be like stronger?
I mean, not really, but you certainly can use some of the mass-based devices. But if the key is that it's the speed at which it works. So the eccentric is extremely fast on Kaiser. I mean, so fast that some people think it doesn't have an eccentric. It's like, oh no, no, it has an eccentric. It's very powerful. Um, I kind of chuckle when people say that, and I'm like, no, no, you completely missed the eccentric on this thing. But if if you look at doing this a similar thing with the weight stack, you just band it, put some mass on there and band it up. And it's the closest thing you can get, but it's not the same because you can't measure it. You don't know exactly what you're doing, so you can't be accountable for what and you don't even know what to do next. How much more weight should I do? Should I do 5? Or maybe I can do 40. I don't know. You know. So yeah, the Kaiser is definitely the gold standard there. And so
And
far nobody's come close with anything.
like not even 1080 squats.
No. You mean quantum? You mean the quantum?
Yeah.
No, quantum's too slow. Quantum only moves 4 meters per second. You know, I mean, that's nothing. I mean, we're talking, we're working gravity 9.8 and then some. So with Kaiser, we can be, oh, geez, it's a lot. When you take something like the triple jump, which is the most powerful single leg exercise or event sport that occurs in at least in this planet right now. And guys in the triple jump can be anywhere from 15 to 30 times body weight on one leg. Do the math on that. You know, what's 30 times 70? And then take that and make it newtons and understand how much force there is they're dealing with. And a guy doing change of direction that weighs 230 pounds or, 100, 105, 108 kilos, some that were in there. That's a change of direction. That's stopping it and moving it. And
So
I've heard some guys recently online, that somebody sent me one, a couple of guys talking about the seated calf, and it's the most horrible exercise there is. And I'm just like, maybe for you guys it is, but for us, it's a must. It's vital, you know.
yeah, like you mentioned, like at the beginning, you said like Sue's Solis is like crazy weak,
It
and
was weak.
he
I mean, you
worked
wouldn't
on
have,
it,
yeah,
and then he
yeah.
got like the fastest 60 time ever, fastest.
Well, his 1080 graphs showed, basically four or five, six dips in his contacts, which meant that he was absorbing force. And, the first thing you try to do is change that with technique. The problem is it doesn't matter what technique you use because his muscles aren't ready. They're not coordinated yet. So a lot of strength training is coordination, even more than it is creating power. It's learning how to coordinate things, and then taking what you do in the weight room or with the 1080, and then integrating it to what you need to do on the track. So it's the really great coaches, when we talk about coaches as artists, are those that can integrate the weight room information to the track.
So since you kind of said that a lot of like the strength training is coordination, I'm gonna take it to like the extreme end of this.
Hmm.
Don't hate me for asking this question, but
Yeah,
like, uh, I know like there's a system called like France Boss system. They like to use a lot like aqua back. They like to implement like hip lock, foot plant, foot plant from above. Like,
those are common things. I mean, those are not new things. I mean, hip lock, yeah, thigh lock, versus, and those are actually two different things, by the way, because there's a knee lock and there's a thigh lock. And you have to learn how to do both and differentiate both because one's acceleration based and the other one's max velocity based. And it takes a lot of coordination to determine which of those you're doing and how to do them differently. And that was part of Sue's upbringing. It's what from his first year to his second year, his everything was so much smoother and so much more coordinated. You could tell that the motor units were starting to talk to each other.
so, um, can you kind of like explain a little bit deeper about like the thigh lock and what's the other one?
Well, it'd be thigh lock and knee lock. And so thigh lock and knee lock is essentially with the thigh lock, you're using your rectus femoris stays relatively relaxed and your lower leg is free. So your lower leg is free here, but this is relaxed. In knee lock, this is tight and this is tight. This controls your tibia, femur and tibia. And when you're doing a thigh, so the thigh comes up, but the thigh is the muscles in the hip way up high, whereas the knee is rectus femoris, a little bit of sartorius, and maybe a little VMO, um, and then the gastrocs, of course, and that sets you up for um, being able to apply a lot of force to the ground if you do it right. you know. But if you don't learn the second one, which is thigh, then you are stuck in this all the way down, which is if you look at Chinese athletes, that's what they're all doing most of their careers until we start changing them. And when people say running drills don't work, I'm like, then you don't understand what running drills are for. You know, running drills are a coordination thing. They don't do much else. I mean, how do you coordinate all these elements to get in the end to get force back to the ground or hip flexion to get from the foot forward. You know, or I think Franz calls it retraction, doesn't he?
Yeah, swing
What do
leg
you mean? What do you
retraction.
mean? Heel recovery? You know? Um, yeah, and we do know in sprinting that you really never get to a full straight leg in your push mechanics.
Why don't they why I know like this is another stupid question, but like why they don't like do a straight leg position?
Why don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, because if you do, then you've got no place to go to push. And so it'd be like, okay, where do I push now? But if I land here, I've got that extra to push or to react with the ground. Yeah, with straight leg, you're dead. Now, sort of dead, because in max velocity, you do get to a straighter position, but along the way, and we're talking about a straight position front side, but not back side. So we're, got to differentiate between front side and back side.
Man, that's kind of awesome because you kind of like use because I always kind of can't understand like how France Bosch like uses those terms and his like sprint model, and I thought it was like kind of different than what it like track and field coaches say that, but kind of combined together. That was kind of awesome.
No, I mean Francis, he's coming from a different background, so he uses the terminology he's used to using. And most track coaches weren't using that terminology. We had different terminology, but in a sense, he's defining it. Now, it also may be more, um, it may be a better word choice for translating Dutch to English too. So you never know. I mean, you're talking about two languages here, and he's got these words he uses, and those words mean this. And over here, track coaches, those words mean the same thing. Um, so, I mean, to his credit, he's got a whole lot of people thinking, and we can do no wrong when we try to create critical thinking coaches, and
Nice.
better analytical coaches, and that's and I haven't spent enough time with France. I mean, I've got his books and things, but I haven't spent enough time. I've actually never met him. Um, but at some point, um, you either get results or you don't. So, and I don't even know who's coaching at this point but he works with all the coaches. So, there's a list of people that he's influencing, and he's certainly not doing anything wrong, that I've seen so far. Um, but I haven't looked at everything. I haven't gone and taken a microscope because I don't really need to,
Yeah.
or have any desire to at this point, because it's not like it's a system that I must learn. It is, for its purpose, it gives people a lot of people who don't understand running mechanics a great introduction into the smaller pieces of the puzzle so that you can create out of those pieces flow, flow coordination. You can choose your word, but in the end, you're looking for both of those things.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like everybody are probably doing the same thing, but just name it differently.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's named their drills differently. You can look at one guy and he's doing a mock drill and he's called it chicken legs. I don't know, it's just but when you're dealing with kids, for instance, those names, they think it's funny and cool. And again, you can't judge coaches by all of that because I mean, we all do it, but you know, you try not to because you just don't know what thing you're going to say that is going to create the result you want.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know for sure on that day what word is going to go into that brain and get connected to everything else so that they get it. Um, and you've maybe heard me say this, but you know, as a coach, you're out there and you're telling the kid, look, you got to do blue. You want to be great. Blue. You can do blue today? Hey, how about doing blue right now? Come on, think about it. Let's bring this in. Slow it down. Let's do blue. Another coach will come up, never seen the kid before, look at him and go, hey, by the way, you know, you got to change this in your blue. And it all changes. And you're like, damn, you know, you're saying the same things, but that communication is it's so crazy and important. I mean, you know what the cueing that just blanked on his name. Sorry, buddy. Um, you know,
No
now in
worries.
Ireland. Huh?
No worries. No worries.
No, I mean it's just crazy that I'm not remembering his name right now. But you know, his book on cueing really gets has gotten people to think, you know, and that was, you know, what's that book, 7 years old now or so? Um, 6 or 7 years old. But it's gotten people to think about how they talk, how they cue. Because if you can't get into someone's head, then you know it's harder. It can be done, but it's just a lot harder.
Nice. So another topic I want to ask about is like like me, I've been using like Kaiser since last year, and I've been helping like check and fill like jump crew use
Hmm.
Kaiser, and like what I used to use Kaiser is just like drop landing, like stiff landing, and I figure like this is just me thinking if I'm doing like the Kaiser with drop squat or like stiff landing, I technically don't need to do like Olympic weightlifting. Am I correct?
Depending on what you're doing, I mean, if you're doing reactive squats or reciprocating squats with either the rack or the Kaiser squat, yeah, I mean, you're interested in that explosion and that reactive explosion that you get when you're doing block starts.
And uh, so besides like the reactive squat or like explosive squat, like mm, do you also use like Kaiser squat to do like full range of motion like squat?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sure. We do parallel squats there. Belt squat, parallel squats, that parallel squats. We don't have the deadlift, but I do that just like you're doing a hex bar. And then we have variations on the theme with the rack. So yeah, there's I don't know. I mean, you got a lot of exercise you could do, put it that way.
So technically, like using a Kaiser squat or belt squat, you can just use it like it's kind of like force velocity profiling. You can like just do all like the curve with just one Kaiser squat and different
Well,
theme. You choose different exercise.
you don't even have to force velocity profile. All you have to think about is here's the weight I'm using. Now I'm going to move it as fast as I can. That's it. You already got your force velocity profile. You don't have to do a force velocity profile. Every rep is a force velocity profile, a perfect one.
I like this. I like this idea. I like this idea.
I mean, that's the key to Kaiser is that every rep's a perfect rep, you know? I mean, so I'm using a lot of weight, but I'm moving slow. Yeah, guess what? You're using a lot of weight. Of course you're going to move slow. That's the way it works, you know? And then unloaded, of course, the body is the fastest, and isometric is the slowest over here. So, which means no speed at all. But yeah, with every rep you do, and it's one of the reasons why I fell back and continue to fall back with Kaiser, is that every single rep is a perfect rep, as long as your intent is to move that resistance as fast as you can under the circumstances.
If that's the case, technically we don't need like we technically don't need really need barbell or like bumper plates, right? If we all
Yeah,
use Kaiser squat.
Yeah, but I mean, I still do cleans and a couple forms of snatches, but not heavy snatches. We just do them for some upper body coordination exercises. But you know, we I do them because the athletes in China were used to it, and it was just too much to make that kind of change. So we still do it, and don't do a lot of it, but we still do it, and it works.
Cool.
I mean, if Kaiser didn't work, I wouldn't use it. I mean, if somebody came along with something better, everybody knows I would move to it.
Yeah.
But so far, nobody's come up with anything better. Not 1080 for sure.
So, uh,
Although there's good things that happen within the 1080, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more that could happen that have never been done.
yeah, yeah. I personally love the Kaiser squat. I just love that machine.
Well, it's a powerful device. I mean, you get I think I think Sue's best was just under 4,000 watts, and the runner was about the same, right around 3,800 or so watts. I think Shi Hao went over 4,000. I think it was 4,200 single leg. So, I mean, that's the kind of power you need to sprint to start for your sprint start.
Yeah. So,
So,
uh, I want to go back to like the race plan we mentioned on. We kind of talk about like 40-yard dash. Kind of want to keep accelerate until like 25 yard and then slowly gradually like go to like vertical. How about like 60? How about like the 60-meter race plan and 100-meter race plan?
well, there's that when you start talking about this, you're really talking about a continuum. You're just going right on through. And you break it up and you teach it in parts, but the race itself becomes the whole. So we can talk about drive phase, and then up into acceleration and max velocity, and then um, continuation of max velocity, whatever word you want to use to get the right concept into the athlete's mind for the last part of the race. But yeah, we have a plan, but that plan is oftentimes meter specific to the individual. So it'd be like, okay, you are going to keep your acceleration out to 45 meters. You're going to go to 53 meters, and you're going to go to 60 meters. It's just the faster you go, the farther you take it out.
So, uh, for like I know long you also because you could also coach jump, long jump, triple jump. So
Yeah.
I know for a long jump there's like I think there's 6 to 8 steps of acceleration. Then you go to like kind of max velocity and then maintain, then take off. So
You
in
don't
turn
maintain.
they don't.
You don't maintain. No, you attack. This is what everybody gets wrong. They try to maintain. It's no, 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 no. You continue accelerating right through the board.
Continue accelerate right through the board.
Right on through and up. And that's why we measure the last two 5 meter segments, because we want to see the last segment faster than the previous segment.
Like, whoa, that's amazing. That's kind of like the new concept for me. I thought you're gonna go to accelerate, then max velocity. You actually want to keep accelerating until the board and then take off.
While you're accelerating, you're just accelerating with different mechanics. So you're looking at a pure drive phase in 6 to 8 steps or 3 or 4, which you see right here. There's a 3-4-3 pattern. If you look at it,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
reversed. It's reversed on here. But and then once you have that, then the next 4 steps, 4 lefts, 4 takeoffs are to get the body adjusted to the correct posture for attacking. And the attack is 6 steps out, and you attack the ground, and down gets you up. So you're now attacking into the ground to get off the ground. And that's kind of how we do it.
Does that mean like So although you keep accelerating, but in a kind of like a different mechanic, more upright mechanic, does that mean like in your like if you're gonna train long jumper, you're gonna emphasize a lot more on acceleration than max velocity?
Yeah, oh yeah, without a doubt, you've got only a short amount of time to accelerate, you know, 13 meters, 14 meters maybe. Um, yeah, so you definitely spend more time in acceleration. And then you spend more time in uh, transitioning that middle phase, that four that you see behind me. That is the magic happens in each one, but that's an area in which a lot of people fail because they continue to try to drive to the board. You're continuing to accelerate, but you're not using the same mechanics to accelerate. And then once they get into this area to the left of my head, if you can see my pointer, I don't know if it's up there or not. Is my pointer up there?
No,
No. Is it up here now?
no.
Not there, huh? Interesting. I thought it would be. Well, anyhow, you've got six steps to the board.
Yep.
So you just learn that you don't drive to the board, you don't push to the board. Your mechanics have to be more upright, more front side based, less time on the ground, but a lot of force to the ground. So yeah, it's not, long jump looks really simple, but it's not. You want to make it simple for the athlete, but for the coach, it's actually got quite a bit of thought that goes into all of it.
Yeah. So does that mean like it's kind of the same like before the attack, it's kind of the same. The concept is kind of the same with team sport athlete because they kind of run more upright, but like they're still accelerating, especially for like football or like rugby.
Well, we're going to accelerate. We're accelerating, and we're in acceleration mechanics almost where to the end of the four, almost. Usually it's a step before we start to change it, and then now we're in a position to attack down into the ground. Boom, boom, boom in the last six, because down gets you up.
So, I know I kind of asked this question like on the last podcast, like you said, team sport athlete, you need to spend a lot more time on acceleration. Uh, does that mean like if I'm talking about like ratio, like I know this is like pretty stupid, but like in terms of the ratio of the time you spend on acceleration versus max velocity for a team sport athlete, like is there like a ratio there? Like,
I don't know if there's a ratio because it depends on the time of the year. Like right now, we're looking at World Indoors, and we're spending a lot more time in acceleration than we normally would. And then that's just this year. So we'll see how this works out, how they effectively change. We're going to do blocks, and we'll see how they come out of those blocks. And if they improve, then great. And if they didn't, then we take a look at what we're doing.
nice, nice. Another thing about like sprinting is like a lot of people would say a lot of coaches and a lot of athletes would say like Christian Coleman, Trayvon Burmel, or like Marcel Jacob, they have the best block start. But if you look at the time, like Sue's actually like the fastest 60 meter.
And a lot faster in the 30.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot faster, you know.
So I know a lot like Trayvon Burmel and
Trayvon's
oh
a fast starter. Don't underestimate him. Yeah.
yeah. I know a lot of like Trayvon Martin or Christian Coleman, they kind of do a little like toe drag thing. But if you really look at Sue, there's not really a toe drag. Would you think that kind of affect the timing or
No, I don't. I think they've shown that doesn't really affect them a whole lot unless you're dragging it hard. Um, the biggest difference is the understanding, the coordination again, the understanding that the back block coming out is not a knee drive. It's a foot drive, a foot pull, top of the foot pull. So, it's the very top of the foot. So the foot's here, and
Yep.
you're pulling the foot out through your hip, and that'll keep it low automatically. You don't have to think about it because you're moving the whole lever. You're moving the whole lever instead of the knee and the hamstring coming up and retracting it all.
You're pulling the foot.
Top of the foot is what you pull to come out of the blocks. Push, of course, but then you pull it out. But you pull out the whole lever, and it's the lever angle that changes.
Nice, nice. Never thought of it like that. Because I know a lot of coaches will say you should push all the way through.
Well, you do push, but you still have to get to the position where you can push. And if you want to get there in the shortest distance, you don't recover the heel. So the shortest distance is going to be a straight line. And you try to get the top of that foot to this position, and then you're right back. Then you're back down again. Not down, but you're back down this way.
I know you like to use a Nike, right? You like to
Well,
use,
it's just easy, because it's do I have one here? No. I don't have an Anta here either, but the Anta works quite the same. They're both, inverted, but I mean if you look at a Nike, it's kind of like that, and you come up and then back down. And a lot of people are here. They're just straight into the ground, or they just place their foot on the ground. And they're not really, or they place it on, then they pass over it instead of actually using it to go that way.
cool. So another question about like technology is like Kaiser like 1080, they always shows number and it's easy to see like if the athlete hit a PR or not. And with
Hmm.
those machine, I personally think it's easier to like help athlete reach PR like maybe a month.
Well, they see the number, and it drives them, and it makes them accountable, and they're competitive. So they see a number, they want to beat it. You know, I mean, we were doing stopwatch timing in before Paris. Who could do the fastest, and nobody could beat me. And I hit point oh 0.07,
Oh,
and then they're all hitting point oh 0.09, point oh 0.08, point 0.11, point 0.10. And then Jainan did it one time, he got point oh 0.01. And everybody went crazy. It's because that number means something. It has meaning. It has value. Whereas no number, maybe it's good if you look just at the weight lifted, but it doesn't tell you what you're doing. I mean, yeah, the why you're doing it. No, it's not even right. Well, anyways, you're not really reaching in and figuring out what the effect is that you're having.
so I guess what my question is, since like a lot of them, they're competitive and they're probably gonna reach PR, like reaching PR, does that mean like they're getting stiffer and it's probably gonna expose their tissue to a whole nother like unknown area? Like, is that also gonna increase their injury rate?
Could. I mean, I can't tell you. I don't know. I mean, we can take and look at big numbers, but we need to look at the why for each individual person. And then if the why starts to show a pattern, now you can take that and say, okay, what can we do to affect this pattern?
Mm.
And that's what physical therapists are for. I mean, um, I think Fran is a physical therapist I don't remember. I need to figure, I don't remember what his actual educational background is.
Cool.
I
So
should know that, and I don't know.
it's okay. So, another like interesting thing. So, me and my boss Adam Pett, we did a tour. We'd take force plate and 1080 to like 11 D1 Power 4 or Power 5 school basketball like teams to test their vertical deceleration and like
Uh-huh.
linear deceleration and lateral deceleration. And what we end up founding is like if you strictly follow like what force plate tell you, you're only gonna like perform well on force plate. So, do you think we need to like train like all these different? I know you can't answer that, but do you think we need to train like all these like different planes of like change of direction or different axes of like deceleration?
I mean, it's not going to hurt. I mean, that's part of the LTAD model. That's the stuff you should be doing with 8 year olds all the way through, to 12 or 14. Instead, we're getting them at 25 and 26, and they can't skip or hop or gallop or anything. So the answer is yes, it's an issue.
And since we're talking about like deceleration, if we're talking about like linear, just linear deceleration, like what are like some things you're gonna look at? Like in acceleration, you look at shin angle, like body angle, like
It's the same thing. It's just reverse it, and it's still shin angle. You got to put that shin angle in the right. You got to put that shin in the right place. Again, that right place means where is it with respect to the center of mass of the body, the athlete that you're dealing with. Um, it's if you overthink it, you're getting in other people's business. If you can be successful with what you have, you don't have to get in other people's business.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all the question I have for you today. And so for those who are interested in what we're talking about today, I know you put a lot, I know you recently did some podcasts with Mike, and you actually like there's a lot of like resource online. So where can they find you and what are your future goals?
No, I don't have many future goals. Stay alive as long as I can. Um, Continue to help athletes reach their dreams, and that may be helping their coach. It may be getting them to understand psychologically why they're, in trouble. But there's a host of things there. Cross country ski and mountain bike as much as I can, and try to get healthier for my age. I mean, at 70, you start thinking about these things. So yeah, and there's going to be it's a big year. I mean, World Indoors, World Outdoors, and National Games. So the big
Nice.
year. Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, and I have another call, so that's why I'm got to catch up with the Chinese group here in just a minute and
Okay.
and see how they're doing because